It's always sunny down in Mexico. The sun gets high when I get low. The only way to get there is to let yourself go. Good times are made in Mexico.
Really wanted to start the interview off at the beginning and just kind of ask you, how'd you and your partner meet? When did you know a destination was the right choice for you guys?
That's a great question. So we met coming up on 11 years ago at work. It was my first job out of college. He was already established at where we were both working. And it started as I was an intern. So I was on summer break, and he was actually one of the trainers that was helping lead the intern class. I had one semester of college left, but we quickly thought, hey, you know what? This could be something special. So we started dating that summer. I went back to school. It was long distance. He was in Rhode Island. I was in South Carolina. We made that work. And then after I graduated, I went and joined him in Rhode Island. And the rest has been history since. So we've been together over 11 years. And when we were starting the wedding planning process, we couldn't really pick a location. We've bounced around, we've moved to so many places. A lot of places are very special, near and dear to our hearts, but we're older. We wanted to do something a little different, unique. We were one of the last groups in our friend groups to get married, and thought, why not for destination, since we couldn't really land on a place stateside. And once I started looking into destination weddings and started talking to brides that had a destination wedding, it was a no-brainer for me. It just seemed like something that would be totally fun and unique. Also a little bit of cost savings there too, if I'm being transparent, but it truly felt like something that all of our friends and family could join us and have a special time and a vacation for themselves as well.
You fell in love with the guy training you.
Yeah.
I
already had the job, so there was no favoritism there.
Had you been to a destination wedding prior to that?
A few months before our destination wedding, one of my dear friends had her wedding in Croatia, of all places. It's actually where her and her spouse met. Leading up to the wedding, I was able to attend, but prior to that, I didn't have any knowledge of destination weddings before. It was actually a foreign concept. My sister is the one who pointed out, have you thought about having a destination wedding? And it was when we were planning our my bachelorette trip, because I really wanted to go to the resort, and I was like, oh man, it's so costly for just one weekend, and then having a wedding. She's like, why not just have the wedding there? So that's kind of how that came into bloom.
What was it specifically about Unico that made you land on that as the property?
Yeah, it was honestly a lot of friend recommendations. So I'm a big foodie. I love a good craft cocktail. I've read so many destination sites that said the food is good for an all-inclusive. And I was like, I don't want the food to be good for an all-inclusive. That makes it sound like there's a negative connotation, the buffet is just whatever. But I had a few friends that I know are also foodies that have been to Unico, and that was one of their favorite aspects, was the quality food, the amazing restaurants, and the quality cocktails that you can get on site whenever. So that was a huge draw. That's what made me start doing my research in the area and online sleuthing, trying to find out the tips and the tricks. But ultimately we ended up planning a site visit to Unico, and it met and exceeded actually all of our expectations when it came to food and drink, and that was our number one priority. So it just felt like a really good fit for us.
When did BAI come into the picture with your planning?
BAI came into the picture at the perfect time. So right when we decided, you know what, we are going to do an all-inclusive. When we did the site visit, we knew that we needed a great travel agent to help with the destination wedding process. That was something so foreign to both of us. And in all of the groups and all of the blogs that I read, they're like, you need to have a great travel agent. So that's when I started doing some research. BAI is everything and more when it comes to travel agencies. And then meeting with you just really solidified your care for the guest experience, for our experience, your responsiveness. It was kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and lock that in.
Did you have any misconceptions about working with a travel agent? Because I think so many people in today's world, they're like, nobody works with a travel agent anymore. But when it comes to you're doing a group and a group room block contract, there's a lot of complication there. And I think a lot of people think that there's expenses to using travel agents, and there isn't.
Yeah, well, there are for some, right? Or they'll say I'll only work with certain resorts, or no, you have to work with the resort that I'm partnered with. That was few and far in between, right? So when I was on your website, it made it very clear hey, it's a service that we provide, no charge to you. That was kind of a relief. I mean, I'm a millennial, so I didn't grow up using a travel agent, but my parents, I think that they did. So when I think of travel agents, I think of probably like boomers that aren't apt in technology or they need help booking their flights. And I'm like, well, that's not me. But it was exactly what you mentioned, the guest experience. There are so many complications, nuances, and just having an advocate that I had no idea until starting the destination wedding process. So yes, I knew how valuable a travel agent would be just by reading the reviews. I probably didn't have a great sense of, well, what would they be doing until I met with you and you kind of walked me through everything you would be doing. And I was like, oh, I've made the best decision.
Well, I definitely think it beats booking on your own. One thing our clients don't see on your end, because the way we handle our contracts with our couples, I sign a contract with the resort and then you sign a contract with us, right? But in the contract that I sign with the resort, there's a lot of liability. There's like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of liability in that contract based off of the room block and filling it and whatnot.
Right.
It's extremely complicated in many situations, and it can really make couples feel like, overwhelmed. And one thing I feel like we do really well is that with our contract with you, we simplify that quite a
Totally.
bit. And we make it so that, hey, no, we're going to take out the liability factor of if you don't fill all the rooms, you don't sell all the rooms, you don't book all the rooms. We're going to take all that out, simplify it, make it a much easier contract. And that way it makes it an easier process and smoother process for you. And you're not taking on that liability, because if I screw up on my side, I got to pay the hotel, right?
Right.
And in our contract, there was no penalties at all involved in, like, if you don't sell all the rooms, if you don't, there's nothing. So, I think we do a good job of making that smoother. Did you really look into that at all? Or were you just like, nah, whatever, we're good?
No, I think with your explanation and like behind the scenes, I had no idea all of that was going on, but like rightfully so, right? I think you do a good job educating me on and my husband, like what we needed to know and what our responsibility was. And that was a concern. Destination weddings, you never know how many of your guests are actually going to go. So that part was a little daunting when we're talking about, well, how many rooms do you anticipate? How many guests do you? I don't know. We sent out 120 invitations or to 120 people. We ended up having 31 people come, and a lot of those changes were made like weeks up into the wedding for people that couldn't travel for whatever reason. Once we got started with the processing, you explained the room blocks and making
Yeah.
sure that they were released or working with like for special accommodations. I felt very stress free when it came to that aspect of planning.
Well, that's great. That's good to
Yeah.
hear. So, was there any particular situations or anything like that where you were just like, you know what, this is a moment where I'm like, oh, I'm glad I went with an agent?
Yeah, when a lot of like our guests had those questions, we have a lot of friends that are having babies right now. They're in that stage of their life, and they're like, I don't know what travel's going to look like for me then, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay at this resort. Whatever the case may be. I had an uncle like 2 weeks before the wedding was like, I think I'm going to pop by, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like 2 weeks before? Oh my gosh! So being able to have access to you unfiltered and just asking these questions and saying, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I make this change request? You were all over it. So just in general, like that support and your response time, I have never experienced anything like that in my life. Like I will have just send and then I'll get something from you literally 30 seconds later and I'm like, how? Like, how did this even come in so fast? So it was a great experience overall.
It's funny you mentioned it, because it's like I had ordered something on Amazon yesterday, and they said it was going to be here today. And as soon as I hit clicked order, it said now expected like next week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was trying my hardest to find customer service
Yes.
on Amazon to talk to somebody,
Good
and
luck.
everything they have is just an AI
Yeah.
bot that responds to you immediately. So almost like I almost don't like you saying, "No, you respond so quickly," because it's not a bot responding. It's like,
No, it was so personalized. And in today's like day and age, like with AI and like having like the automated systems, like I can't tell you how appreciated it is to have like a live person on the other end and stateside too. It was so amazing in my time zone because having to coordinate with the resorts, it's on their time zone and like on their timelines, but having someone stateside, I was honestly like very curious how that would like come into play. Fantastic. So glad I had that. I wouldn't have done anything differently.
we always say the resorts, no matter what resort it is, the resorts work on island time. It can be frustrating for couples if they're dealing with the weddings team and trying to get responses back. Or even like imagine if you had booked it, directly with the resort, like they just don't have the teams to handle all of the group bookings, all of your guest questions, all of that type of stuff. with each individual group. So,
Right.
and then their response times as well, it would just add a lot to it. We really pride ourselves on being able to respond to people as quickly as possible. We always say 1 to 2 business days, but really it's usually a matter of a couple business hours, in some cases, a couple business seconds. But there is a real human responding. We don't have these preset responses we're going through and responding to people with. That's what I would have wanted if I was getting married. And it's really what I want in every situation with any business ever.
Right?
So,
I feel like it's the standard that we're moving away from, but I get it. And that's where like I tend to align with like not my millennial self. I don't like keeping up with technology and all of like the new like automation, AI. It's like foreign to me. So yeah,
yeah.
I love a good human on the end of the phone.
How many guests did you have, and what date was your wedding again?
It was March 15th of this year. I think it was 31 guests, including us. So 29 that traveled in, and then my husband and I.
How did you decide on the date?
It was actually our 1 year anniversary. So knowing that we needed to get married stateside, they do offer the option to do that in Mexico. We just found it for us. It was easier to do it here. We wanted to have a very, very small ceremony with what we knew family wouldn't be able to travel, things of that nature. So we got married privately here in Charlotte, North Carolina on March 15th, 2024. And it just felt right to have our 1 year anniversary in Mexico when we were getting married publicly. So that's how we landed on that date and why it was so special to us.
You decided Unico had the best food
Yes.
for an all inclusive, and I mean I think you're right on that. I think it's definitely at the top, and it's always so funny because people come to me all the time. We're like, hey, what was the food like? And I'm like, food is such a subjective thing. Like
It is.
to one person, they think this is amazing. To the other person, it's not. It's so hard to find that right fit on food expectations. I don't know in talking to you, I don't know what your experience with, food is or what your expectations are. So it's challenging. But you didn't think Unico missed any marks with that?
Literally none. From the time of the site visit back to when we arrived for the wedding, that was one of the biggest compliments that like our guests and family kept telling us is, oh my God, the food, oh my God, the craft cocktails, as well as like the resort ambiance. And that is totally subjective to each couple. And when we were talking early on and making sure that Unico was right for us, I think you were even one to mention they're small, they're quiet, they're boutique. If you're looking for a big nightlife, like this isn't for you. Well, you just described all the things that we love. We are not looking for a disco club or anything at the end of the night. We just want that intimate experience with amazing service there. And like I mentioned, food and drink, and they have delivered time and time again on that.
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but we always ask, you had 31 guests at your wedding. Do you have any idea what your overall spend was?
I do have an idea of what the overall spend was. I don't want to go into like budget specifically because there are so many things that like variables that play into that. I will say it was harder than I thought doing a realistic budget at a destination wedding. I joined a lot of the Facebook groups. I like researched a lot of the pricing, and what I thought going into was absolutely not what we ended up spending, but it was still comfortable for us. I just think my expectations were a little different. So
Why do you think that was, though? Do you think it was because I think the resorts often, they have these preset packages that
right.
are kind of baseline. And I think I see a lot of couples fall in love with, Instagram photos of
Yes.
more elaborate weddings, if you will, and that have a lot of upgrades over what the baseline is. Did that play a part in why your expectations were, they weren't in line?
Yeah, I think so. So I joined a few Facebook groups and where the brides will talk prices and they will talk guest count. And without seeing their invoices, you really don't know what they put money into, what their specific preferences were. So I'm seeing these brides say that they can get, a 50-person wedding done for 10 grand. And I'm like, oh my God, sign me up. And I still don't know how they were able to do it based on my preferences and what I wanted. So I think it just depends on each bride, what they value, what they want to spend money on. And you really won't know that until you are meeting with your vendor and looking at some of the contract pricing. I got married this year, but my contract, I think we signed in 23 or maybe early 24. So the contracts are much different now. I understand that they have different tiers. We did the complimentary package And I think that is a lot of things included for up to 30 guests, which worked out great because we ended up having like 31 people.
Right.
But that is for like the bare bones. So I will say you can get it done. But to your point, if you see these beautiful Instagram or TikTok weddings or Pinterest weddings, like manage your expectations, and you really
Yes.
just have to learn like where you want to spend your money and where you're maybe willing to compromise.
That is 100% on par. Can it be done? Yes. But is it going to be what you envision for your wedding?
Right.
Maybe not. And I understand from the resort's perspective because they have to appeal to the lowest cost, right? Let's face it, every bride doesn't want everything. I mean, you could have spent $1 million on your day if you wanted to. It varies all over. Overall, their base package is pretty decent. And then their incentives that they give couples for the kickbacks on the room block and whatnot, I think those are pretty generous as well.
I think so as well, especially like when we were anticipating like even 50 guests, which is a little less than half of what we invited. Amazing incentives. We ended up not meeting that threshold, but we are still very happy overall with the incentives that we get because the resorts do not have to give you anything. So it's really nice that they do find ways to give back. And then of course, once you're there and once you're meeting with your vendors, they go above and beyond to make sure that your day is like nothing short of excellent. But I did think that the incentive package was very generous. I wish I had not made financial decisions based on the incentives that I thought we were going to make. So we were pretty confident in around 50 guests, but life happens. Babies happen, like sickness happens. So that reduced our guest count. So looking back, I probably wouldn't have relied so much or relied as heavily on those incentives. But again, when we got that information, we were able to then compromise, pick and choose what truly matters to us. And again, wouldn't change a thing.
Well, and you were still able to make changes to your wedding day
Of
up
course.
until very close to the actual wedding day, correct?
Yeah, up until 3 months out, we were still able to kind of customize everything. And then even once we locked in our contract, we paid the final invoices, we were still able to make small changes. The resort really does want you, and the wedding coordinators really want you to be happy. So if it's within their control, they will absolutely work with you to try to make sure that those small details that you might have overlooked or might want to switch out, that you can do so within reason.
Yeah, and just so you know, I think a lot of the reason they do want things kind of finalized is because for a lot of things they have to go to outside vendors,
Right.
and so they need to coordinate that and
Right.
make sure that they'll have everything that you want, and that takes time. Obviously, they need some head time on that. Did you hire Imperial?
I did.
You did, yes. Okay. Just so you know, and this is where I'm going to talk a little bit more trash about Unico,
Okay.
but we're going to bleep out Unico's name in our shorts, so we won't use the name of the hotel. But I tried. I know you hired Imperial Band for your wedding.
Yeah.
And had you seen them before, or how did you get hooked up with them?
Only Instagram videos and reviews. I saw so many reviews where brides said this was like the best spent money in my entire wedding was this band. And regardless of guest size, I totally agree with them. They made the night, and working with Lester and group, they brought the energy and they truly made our day spectacular. So I do think that they were worth every penny.
I love it. I mean, I've been to weddings all my life. Like every band wedding, it's going to be a fun group. When I was a photographer or when I traveled with weddings, even as a travel agent, seeing a band at a wedding was just like, okay, this is going to be fun. So they do bring the energy. I agree. They usually come at a much higher cost than the DJ. And at Unico, it was especially a higher cost because of the outside vendor fees. And what drove me insane is the whole idea behind an outside vendor fee, if you ask me, is that you pay the outside vendor fee so that the vendor can have access to the resort to do their job.
Right.
That's what an outside vendor fee is.
Right.
And in Unico's case, they not only charged you the outside vendor fee for them to have access to the resort, but then they charged per person a day pass fee, which was not cheap at all, and per person in the band for them to also have access to the resort. I want you to know I tried my hardest. I blew this all the way up to the VP, and I basically got, this is the owner's decision, and there's nothing we can really do about it because it's the owner's decision.
Right.
I did try my absolute hardest, and I am adamantly against this policy. But fill me in on what your vision of it was.
Yeah. And don't forget about the supervisory fee. Like
Right,
there's a fee on top of a fee on top of a fee. And transparently, we knew that going into it. And the group that I was in was upfront with it. So our goal was to use as many in-house vendors as we could, but still being true to what we wanted our day and what was important to us. So a few things that we did not want to compromise on or kind of roll the dice: photography, videography, hair and makeup, but luckily they have an amazing in-house vendor for that. And we knew that we wanted a band. When we're planning, we're thinking, okay, yeah, we'll allocate this cost, or hey, we're not willing to pay this cost for this, and let's take another look. It does leave a sour taste in your mouth only because you're spending so much money, or you're willing to spend so much money, and then maybe you have to draw back because, oh, don't forget about these like fees hanging over your head. I will say that is a choice that each individual has to make. You are aware of the fees up front, but I think you just idealize this in your head, like, I have to have this person, and you don't necessarily think about what you have to take away from your wedding if you're working within a specific budget. It's an unfortunate part of it. We made it work, obviously, but it does seem a little greedy sometimes.
I mean, there's really no other way to put it. It's just frustrating because it's like, I'm all for, if you have a fee, fine. Okay, you're going to charge a fee, but let's not throw in the supervisory fee and then the day pass fee as well. I mean, this is insane. Like, the fee should include all of that because that's what we're paying a fee for them to access a resort to begin with. Just out of curiosity, did they offer an internal vendor that is a band?
They did not. And that's my biggest gripe, is because if you're telling me that I'm going to pay this fee, give me the option for an in-house vendor. And if you don't have it, then why am I paying the fee? Like, you're essentially charging me for a service that you don't provide. That's where the frustration comes in. I will say we really wanted a watercolorist at our reception to paint cards for guests based on like Polaroid pictures. We were going to bring them in and they said, wait, we have a vendor for this. And I said, that is fantastic. Thank you for letting us know. And they gave us the option. Their work product was great. So we ended up going with the in-house. With the band, we couldn't do that because all they offer is one DJ.
Right.
Which has, depending on what your vibe is and what you're looking for your wedding, it might not meet your expectations for your wedding. You might not like their style, and they're saying use it or pay thousands of dollars in vendor fees to get your own person here.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with everything you said. So, all right. But that's the frustrating part. It wasn't all frustrating, no. Talk about the wedding day. What venue did you choose for your ceremony and reception?
So we did the gazebo for our wedding ceremony, and we chose the 6:00 timeline. We really wanted like the sunset photos and golden hour. And then for the reception, we did the recently renovated L patio, which ended up being a great space for our guests. We thought originally we wanted to be on one of the terraces that are in like the pool area, but ultimately decided for weather planning purposes, we just felt more comfortable. And with our ultimate guest size, we felt more comfortable with like the covered L patio, and that's where we landed.
Did you add any personal touches at all to the schedule that made it, really unique to you guys throughout the day?
I will say a really special moment that I did. I also did a first look with my dad, which was really special and emotional, and just having that time with him.
What was the energy like during the reception? And was there an after party?
The energy at the reception was fantastic, and I give all the credit to Imperial Band on that. They did a fantastic job getting everyone out of their seat. My parents were on the dance floor. My spouse's parents were on the dance floor. It truly just got everyone in the best mood. 10 out of 10, fantastic time. I did not sit down the entire time. So when we did our last dance and the band was sending us off, the idea was to go to Palermo Lounge or the lobby bar. The lobby bar closes at 12, so that would only leave the lounge open, which I think stays open till around 2. But then this wave of emotion hit me. I was so emotionally fulfilled, but also drained from the day.
Yes.
My feet, I realized, like, how am I even standing upright right now? Chance, my husband, was dancing so much, he had a blister on the back of his foot. I was like, let's please just go back to the room. So we had every intention of shutting down Palermo, but our reception ended at 12 midnight. We went back to the room and then just spent the rest of that evening privately. We ordered room service because, again, food's so good, and then saw all of our guests off in the morning.
Nice. Yeah, there's always that that moment afterwards where you're like, I always know it's like somebody's like, I'm just gonna go get changed. I'm like,
Yeah, you're not coming back. And I knew that about me. If I'm like, oh, let me get changed, let me put in something comfy. No, there was no return.
What do you think overall from the trip? I mean, are there any moments specifically that stand out? Obviously the wedding, but outside of the wedding and the events there, was there any moments that stood out really for you for that you'll never forget from the trip?
Just having all of like our close friends and family in the same place. And I love when friend groups or family like cross pollinate when they can finally put a face to the name and say, oh, this is who I've been hearing about for years. So that was really special and near and dear to us. Because we had such a small group size, we were able to actually have lunch or dinner, breakfast or both with each individual group that came down. And that was so special for us to have that time because a lot of wedding weekends, you have so many people there and you're lucky to say hi at a cocktail party or maybe squeeze in a dance at the reception. So that was wonderful for us that we were able to just spend truly quality time on a weekend where we were celebrating us, but then also all the friends and family that made the journey.
Thinking about the overall process from, beginning planning all throughout the end of it, was there any time that you questioned whether or not doing a destination wedding was the right decision?
I don't think so. I really don't. We felt really comfortable throughout the entire process, probably too comfortable because you put in your contract and then it's a waiting game, right? Like you're not picking flowers a year and a half. Again, we signed so early. You're not picking flowers a year and a half out. You're not like solidifying your decor. So it was really just like amazing. Like no news is good news up until 3 months before where you have to get all your selections. That month was a little rough, but that's going to
Right.
be rough for anyone, right? Like making changes, waiting on the resort to respond, which takes a very long time, trying to loop in vendors to say, why aren't they responding to me? But I honestly think you're going to get that stateside a little bit too. So again, I wouldn't have done it any other way. I probably would have been a little bit more proactive, but that's a me issue and no one else.
If you could give one piece of advice to a couple just starting the destination wedding process, they don't even know the resort yet, what would it be?
Absolutely get a travel agent that is able to walk you through the pros and cons of each resort, that has a relationship with the resorts, that will be your advocate. I think we got very lucky in that sense, not knowing really the pros and cons of what a travel agency can do. We were pretty steadfast in our decision with Unico, but our first conversation with you, you wanted to really walk us through on like, okay, but why? Let me make sure there's not a better option, or what is your budget? And just having that knowledge base made everything so much better. So I would say amazing travel agent. And then just find a way to check in with your partner. I was very fortunate. I hear a lot of brides in the groups and a lot of brides that I know, their husband just shows up to the wedding and they're like, oh, this is nice, right? Mine was not that. And I knew I couldn't take on the stress of like, work, home life, and planning a wedding by myself. So we had monthly date nights where we would go out, treat ourselves to a dinner, and then we would do some wedding planning and we would make those decisions together. So finding ways that you can work to communicate through that helped me tremendously. And that was something that I'm glad we did from the very start. So we were on the same page throughout the whole process.
Interesting, that you mentioned when you came to us, you had already decided on your resort, and that I wasn't just like, okay, let's do it. Like, that I was more like, yes, but why did you choose that resort? Because the proper salesperson training in me would say, don't ever question that. Take the booking. The human inside of me, wants to make sure that you have the right property. And so many people, just, oh, I heard good things about this, and they haven't been. And I'm just like, I think there's nothing more important than matching up the right group, the right couple to the right property, and each one has its own ups and downs, and it's everyone's not for everybody.
Right.
So I just think that's really important, which is why we had that conversation to
Yeah.
begin with. I'm glad that you found that useful.
Yeah, and my knowledge base can only go so far. I'm internet sleuthing. I'm looking at reviews. I'm looking at photos. You've been there. Like, you know the resorts. You have the relationship. You can tell me the inside scoop. So looking back on that, like, totally valuable, and so happy that we had those conversations because, again, what I thought, you were able to confirm, or you were able to say like, but actually no, like, cause I did ask about the nightlife and you're like, temper those expectations. They've got like a little bar situation. And I was like, you know what? No, that works for us. We were just thinking of our guests. So having firsthand knowledge beats, any Google review or anything that you can find on your own.
Even going to the internet, you can't really rely on people's reviews. You can't really rely on AI, because unless you are talking to somebody who has actually been and hopefully been multiple times,
Right.
you don't know the back history of, that person reviewing may think this 1-star resort is great because they've never experienced anything great before.
Even things down to, I think we even had a conversation about like the seaweed. You're like, just so you know, like, but that is so important because I see in a lot of these groups, like, brides are like, what do you mean there's seaweed on the beach? I'm like, well, first of all, it's a beach. But second, like, you have to know like where you're situated and just small things like that. And working with a knowledgeable photographer that's going to help you make those decisions. Like it's the best information that you can have before going into it. You have to self-manage your expectations when you're getting married at a beach. Like, for example, we had hurricane force winds on our wedding day. You can't plan for that. March is supposed to be like super calm and beautiful, and it was, but there's these little factors that you have to take into consideration. I would not have thought of the benefit of going into a covered venue just in case, planning for the worst case scenario. And when someone pointed that out to me, I was like, absolutely. Like, I don't want to have to be shoved in a ballroom where I'm not paying for drapes, to cover the panel walls. So just having an advocate and someone that's much more knowledgeable in that space that does this for a living, best decision.
If someone was on the fence about having a destination wedding or booking specifically with BAI, what would you tell them?
Do it. 10 out of 10 would not change anything about our experience or our day. Obviously, do your homework, but if you are in BAI's hands, you are in the best hands that you can be in, and just feel confident in your decision. Regardless of what happens throughout the planning process, your special day will be perfection for you and your spouse. And with this team, they'll do everything within their power to make sure of that.
Favorite drink at the resort?
The center at Bar Balam. It's like a spicy strawberry margarita situation, I think, with like a chili on top. It was fresh muddled fruit, Bar Balam. I was going from the pool to the bar just to get that drink.
Favorite song from the wedding night?
Florence and the Machine, Stand By Me. That was our first dance. I love their take on it. We had the cold fireworks go off. It was really beautiful.
Last one might get you in a little trouble. Favorite memory from a guest the whole trip?
Oh my gosh. We had a friend group or a couple that came, and we've known them for a few years now. And the moves that they brought on the dance floor, I was like, who are these people? Like, how have I not seen this before? The energy was fantastic. And I was just completely taken away. He was dancing with my mom. He was getting people off their feet. I was just like, who is this guy? In the best way possible. So that was really fun to see.
Sunny down in Mexico, the sun gets high.